All right. Hello, everybody. Let me see what this says. Due to Facebook restrictions, we can't see the names and profile pictures of your. That's fine. Um, oh, why can't I? I don't know why it does that. So hopefully we'll be able to see the questions that comes through. All right. So hello to all of you who is here. And we are doing I guess you would call it a little bit of an informational webinar this evening when it comes to Feel to Heal 1.0. And I decided to do it this way. So just in case some folks are not able to watch the video or join us live tonight, that there's a great opportunity for us to be able to do it differently. I do have some classmates, I should say classmates, guests, that will be joining me in a little bit. But before we do that, I wanted to just give you a little bit of an overview of Feel to Heal 1.0. So, and before I do this, I want to just double check real quick. Jen, can you tell if it's streaming on the page? We may be echoing too, if that's the case. But I think my daughter stole my phone, so I can't see if we are or not. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, so let's get ready to rumble. Apparently, there are opportunities for you to put in your questions, I believe, in the comments. I may not see your name, I believe. That's the only downfall to it right now. I'm not really quite sure because I did this the other day with somebody and I was able to see people's names, but tonight doesn't appear to be the case. So Feel to Heal 1.0. Ultimately, I love this class. It's a course that came to fruition at the beginning of COVID, at the beginning of time. And it was through a vision, essentially, that I had to be of service in the now and to really bring together all of those experiences that I have had in my course of my spiritual growth, not everything, but in a way, in a place to bring people together, to be able to have conversations, to essentially get out of your head and get into your soul, to be able to live the purposeful life and to live life as joyful as everybody should, right? And I know it sounds super cliche for me to be like, live your joyful life. You know, everybody's always like, hey, okay. But the concept really that I'm looking for, and over the years of really, being a coach and working with so many women and college students, was really this notion of how much we're stuck in our heads and that we're highly driven, we're highly intelligent, and sensitive at the same time. And we were stuck always. And so, we found ways in our minds to really kind of take away, the joy that already exists within us. And so my purpose behind this experience was to bring a group of women together to be able to explore this concept. And again, integrating all of the things that I have learned throughout my own spiritual journey. And then when you go to the Soul Sync Wellness website, and when you go to read more about Feel to Heal, you learn more about my story. And my personal story, without kind of going into crazy detail, is really one in that I find that many of us tend to have, especially in the empath world, especially in the highly sensitive human world, one in which we get to a point that we've overdone ourselves, we've overworked ourselves, and we've gotten to a place of overwhelmed, but also maybe not. It's also could be a place of like, there's something more for me. There's something more in my life that I want, and I just don't quite know how to achieve it. And so for me, about 5 years ago, and I would say after I started to have when I had my daughter, so about really 10 years ago, I started to experience, some physical stuff. And, that's essentially when my intuition started opening up. And so for me, it was really about, struggle. It was really about struggling to figure out what was going on with me health-wise. And really, why was I responding in this way? And I was mad at myself. And then that really kind of continued through after I had my son, and then more things kind of happened in my life. And, until I got to this place where, again, I was overworked because I was ultimately trying to achieve the dream, the thing that I really wanted, but working my pretty much my ass off, trying to do all really, really well, but doing it very, very poorly until I hit rock bottom. And essentially, I was out of work for 4 months. I talk about the fact that I was in the hospital thinking I was going to die because I was in so much physical pain and I didn't quite understand what was going on. I was completely out of it. But the doctors coined it as anxiety. And so that really started my journey of introspection, started my journey of questioning, starting my journey of curiosity, starting my journey of being inspired by being vulnerable and letting go and surrendering to how it takes its form in the world, right? And so I started to really venture into mindfulness, and then mindfulness led me into energy medicine and to honestly energy work and a variety of other modalities, tapping and myofascial release therapy, essential oils. I mean, you name it, right? I could kind of pull the like scroll up and all of that kind of stuff. And I've been coaching for such a long time. And I started out as an integrative nutrition coach back in 2009. And even before then, I was coaching since 2005. So it wasn't like I didn't know how to help other people, but when it came to myself, I sucked. So for me, it was really about, damn it, I actually need to do something completely different and really to accept the fact that this is what was going on in my life. Oh, and I was a mother at the same time and trying to figure out how to handle these two little humans of like, what the heck is motherhood anyways? And then I had to lose my career, right? Because my brain told me that and all the wonderful stories. And the anxiety piece was very, very real. And I struggled for many, many years until I went through a variety of different experiences. Mindfulness was one of those things that really helped me, and definitely meditation and definitely the energy healing. But more importantly, it was getting out of my head and learning how to step into my body and feel those uncomfortable things. And I know you're going to be like, well, why the heck would I want to take this class and be uncomfortable? And the part of this is not that. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. It's the big thing about really being able to learn how to step out of your head and understand more about what your soul feels like is really about understanding that you are a soul in a human body. And the brain wants to control you. Right? The brain wants to control you, and it has a lot to say. It has a lot of storytelling. It has a lot of fortune telling. And I may be pulling cards, people, but it does do a lot of fortune telling. Okay. So this really started this whole feel to heal thing for me because I had to feel these things. I had to feel what it was like to feel that physical pain and then ask myself the question, what is the emotion perhaps that's connected to that? What is it within me that I really want and desire? The reality was that I didn't speak my truth. I was holding back to please everybody else. I have more to my story, but again, to save you that time this evening, I just want to give you a little bit of a glimpse to understand, what it was like for me, essentially. I was constantly in my head because I had to be right or wrong because my culture told me to be right or wrong, right? If it wasn't this, it wasn't good enough for me. And I rejected it. And in turn, I rejected myself and I abandoned my own desires, right? So there's lots of things that we evaluate when we're able to understand, again, what it's like to step outside of the mind and step more into the soul, because the soul already knows. The soul has its plan. And so if we can release and trust our plan and know that our intuition is just guiding us towards that, who would we be? Who would we be when we actually allow ourselves to do that? Question, right? So one of the biggest things, and I want to walk through the structure essentially within the Feel to Heal class. It's 6 weeks. We do this in 6 weeks. This class could be forever. I mean, let's be honest. It really could be forever. So why is this of value? Why is this something to do right now? Because the tools that and I'm not going to say teach you, because it's not about me teaching you the tools. It's about me inviting you into the conversation to notice what you need for yourself so that you essentially can heal yourself. Not about Connie healing you. This is not about putting my hands up and being like, hey, Okay. But if you want me to do that, I'll do that too. But the thing is that it's about really bringing people together, bringing humans together who are rock stars, like you're freaking rock stars. You're at a place where you need to work on you. And the space is here because there's the power of the present moment and the power of calming down so that you can see in quiet, in silence, who's here. That's it, right? That's the power of Feel to Heal, is that it's about allowing yourself and giving yourself the time and space because life is crazy. Time is created in our minds, and we will always say we don't have enough time. Think about how many times you've said to yourself, like, I don't have any time. An excuse. It's BS. All right? Because we do have time for the things that we want to do. So we have 6 weeks to work together on topics that I think are essential to connect to 3 different areas. Number 1, your story. Your story is a beautiful aspect, right? We need to better understand where we came from and who we are and what do we tell ourselves every day? And again, these are things that come from our minds. The second is power. Okay. In essence, these are the things, our strengths. These are the things that really show up for us, our talents. These are the things, our unique gifts and how we show up in the world is what is our power, our identity, all of those things. And then the last piece is our energy. And the combination with all of these aspects, really help us get into our bodies and understand the difference between when our mind is telling us something and when our bodies, aka not our bodies, our soul is talking. Okay, and that's something that I really, really hone in, and everybody who's taken the class can really, really vouch for that. So here's essentially how the structure is. We have six weeks. You have a private portal. You log in, you get a nice little message from me every week. We meet once a week for 90 minutes on Zoom, although it goes longer because we just get into great conversations. So every week we land on Zoom. We have a private Facebook group where we engage in very deep conversation. And I will also say that, we have a lot of great conversation, obviously, in our Zoom calls. And I only take 10, up to 10 for that reason, because intimacy and intimate experiences for growth and transformation are essential for me to really support you in that. And to really honor the space that you need in order to create that for yourself. Okay. You receive weekly workbooks, and here are some examples of those workbooks. Okay. So here's week 1. I just took a couple. Here's week 2, astrology. Week 3, we dive into human design. Week 4, we dive into strengths. Week 5, we dive into energy, speak what you feel. And then week 6, we really get into essentially who you are. Okay. So these are all the workbooks that you get. Okay. And there's a lot of them and there's a lot of content. And the key components to this experience, yes, do we meditate? I'm not going to give the juice out. Sorry, I'm not going to give the juice. You got to come in order to get the juice. But meditation, meditation is a really big aspect of what we do. Oracle readings and intuitive messages are also big. And one of the key things that we start to do is teaching you how to understand what your intuition is telling you, what your intuitive yes and no is. And I'm going to teach you how to do that tonight. Okay, so that's a little bit of the webinar aspect. Okay, so we've got group support, we've got oracle readings, we've got our meditations. I have lots of rules. 1.0, Feel to Heal 1.0 is an awareness course. It is a no action course. Yeah, you're going to take action, but it's an awareness course because I have to ultimately stop you from doing. That's why you're here. That's why you come to this class, right? And you're like, well, I don't want to stop doing. And I know all of you are probably like, heck no, I ain't taking this class. I'm scared of that because what happens? But here's the deal. We have the power to resync ourselves from the inside out. Inner, outer beauty, they're all connected. You could look awesome, get all the Botox you want on the outside, but if you're not doing that on the inside, sorry. And if you're not addressing the things and stories that are preventing you and blocking you from truly living a joyful life, then you're telling yourself another story, right? And we can And so learning how to understand some of those things are really, really important. So I mentioned we've got our Soul Sync Core workbook. I didn't show you what that looks like, but you can get that on my website aside from the actual experience. We look at our astrology charts. I love my guests that come in and help us with all that and really understanding that, especially our North Node. That's a very, very important aspect for us. Our human design story. One of my favorite tools in the entire world is human design. Strengths and passions, emotions, thoughts, feelings, mindset, perceptions, our ego. Hey, our ego, right? We got to get to know our ego. Our ego is important for us. It really is, because it helps us, actually. It helps us see where we are leading with our minds and how we make decisions, and where we are also leading from a soul perspective. We look at our energy centers, as I mentioned, chakras, and understand our vitality. And, we really put it all together. I think this is the biggest thing for all of us, is that we really integrate all these aspects together. And that's Feel to Heal 1.0. There is a 2.0, and now there's a 3.0. But 2.0 is a deeper dive and higher vibe. And 1.0 is all about that, that introduction. Okay. So couple more outcomes that I want to share with you and see if these resonate with you. So number one, okay, is accessing your intuition to empower you in your decision-making process. Essential, right? We need to understand our inner voice, our inner compass. What is our yes and what is our no? And how does it show up in our bodies? It doesn't show up in here. It shows up in our bodies, okay, in our souls. Number two, learning to trust yourself and awaken your inner confidence to become more self-reliant. So how can you trust yourself? One of the biggest things I see with my clients, lack of trust, self-trust, huge. Do you really trust yourself? Are you in fear? What is that for you? Number three, honor your voice and communicate what you really want to say. And I'm going to say with like discernment, it's not like, hey, MRFers, I'm going to, like, I've been meaning to tell you my whole life, X, Y, Z, right? No. But being able to say, you know what, I understand that you want me to do this. However, that does not align with what I'm focusing on right now for me, and creating a boundary, right? And being able to say that with conviction and to release the people pleasing and the poor me's and the victims and the martyrs and all that jazz. Okay. We work on that. Next, discovering what your thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions are holding you back from your desired life. And I think, the key thing for this is about shifting them. So anything that's holding back, how might you reframe, right? How might we reframe that? Activate your top 5 Clifton strengths and talents to stop wasting your time on what isn't serving you. I am a Gallup certified strengths coach for Clifton. We integrate this. I've used this for over a decade, longer than that now, and it has changed the way that I show up when it comes to my work. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Release control, fear, suffering, and open up to feeling more energized and in flow. If we are not in flow, we are what? Let's see if you can fill that in. If we are not in flow, we are in what? You're all like, what? Fear, right? So we're in fear. So release the fear, move into flow. Have a deeper understanding, as we mentioned, our astrology chart, human design, and passions. Have a wonderful, wonderful experience to help you connect to your passions. Learn techniques to shift patterns centered around rejection, abandonment, and control. We've all wanted to be in control, right? How many times has somebody told you to come and help you, and then all of a sudden you're like, nah, I got it, right? So thinking about that for yourself, or fear of being by yourself, abandonment, right? Connect to your energy centers and understand how your physical symptoms and emotions are connected, right? So, when we have stomach issues, right, that's connected to our solar plexus. That's connected to our and it's yellow in color. So that's connected to our third chakra, and understanding things connected to our confidence and our identity, right? Looking at our ego, those kinds of things. So there's lots of different things, and the intertwining and the connection to all this kind of stuff. And then we've already talked about the other things. So what does it require? It requires you certainly to be committed, be open, be vulnerable, be ready to do the work. And I show up every week, all week long. You get pretty much all of me in these classes. And then you have an opportunity essentially to be able to move on to 2.0 should you wish, or you take what you want, and then kind of move on your merry way. But ultimately, at the end of the experience, the goal and the hope is that you are at a place where you can understand what it's like to connect soulfully to yourself and follow your intuitive path 100%. So, couple announcements, and then we're going to invite Jen here, who is a 1.0 and now 2.0 grad. But essentially, as I mentioned, I only take 10. And I do like to speak with everybody who's interested in the experience. And the reason why I'm also talking about it so early right now is because, it's a commitment. It's a commitment. And you do have to plan for this. And the investment right now, is at a great, great price of $697 until the 1st of December. And then after that, it will increase to $997. And you get a ton for that price. And I have to tell you, if you're going to coach with me, 6 sessions to coach with me one-on-one is $2,200. Okay, so if you're in a group experience, we're together 6 weeks. You also get an extra one-on-one with me. And so we get to deeper dive with you. So this is a wonderful opportunity to really do a lot of this work and to be able to work with me during a time where I think we need each other. We need each other in this space. So now I am going to turn it over to Jen. I'm going to bring her on board. Jen! 3, 2, 1, and oh, that was really cool.
Wow, that was really cool.
Like, psh. Jen. All right. So, Jen. So, Jen, you know what? I'm just going to let you talk, really. So maybe you can share a little bit about, with those that are listening right now, about so Jen was part of my first class ever of 1.0, and she is continuing on to now 3.0. And so, Jen, maybe you could talk a little bit about, your journey, your moment of your like, yes, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Going through your mind, and then, what are some of the takeaways that you had?
Yeah, I could talk about this forever, but I will. Everyone needs to take this class, by the way. I told Connie, I think it was last week, I said this should be a required class for adulting. Amazing. I was at a point where my story was coming to a chapter where I think the pages were blank. I wasn't feeling anything. I kind of felt lost. I described myself as being a person who always looked in, like I was always watching, like a snow globe. I was always on the outside. And I had felt like that forever, I realized, like I think my whole life. And I can honestly tell you this class like literally changed my life. I'm going to get emotional about it. I really was. I'm a mom. I work hard, and I was at a point where I was like, I don't know who I am. I didn't like myself. I was not happy. I just was not in a good place. And it shows, like you were talking about, right? Like you can be makeup on, hair looks nice, you're dressed up, and on the inside, you're dying. And that's kind of, I went to work. I just went through the motions. I just was like, okay, this is kind of told myself the story in my head. This is my life. This is what it's supposed to be. And it wasn't until I got to a point where I didn't feel anything. And then we had an interaction at work, and I got excited about things. Like I've always been interested in astrology, and then I learned about human design and all of that. And it just really piqued my interest. And it's one thing to meet someone and be like, oh, I'm a Virgo, or you're an Aries, or whatever. But I didn't understand there's so much more to it than that. That's not even really the important part. There's like many other aspects that are just as important. And I could just go on, but I would say that my three major takeaways. So I told you my story was at a blank chapter. And I got really excited because, first of all, this class is called Feel to Heal. So the prospect of feeling something was very intriguing because I was like, how is this going to help me? But changed everything. The second thing, just learning to love myself and love myself exactly where I am. That changes all the time. It changes. It was changing daily for a while. I can honestly say now, like I've learned so many things. Obviously we're all a work in progress, but I've had coworkers who have noticed and, oh, you look different or you seem different, things like that. And then I think one of the major things is stepping into my power. And that is, I mean, it makes you feel like a warrior.
Yes.
Yeah.
Told you you're a warrior, right? In like a previous life, I was like, warrior woman coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like watch out world. But I mean, if my biggest piece of advice, I mean, first of all, every woman needs to take this class. You just have to. But you have to be honest with yourself. And Connie can attest to it. It's hard. There were some days I was like, "Ugh." And she, but you coached me along the way and you'd be like, what do you want to say? Like, you want to say it. Like, you have to let it out and you have to be honest in order for the process to work.
Absolutely. I think that, but isn't that the hardest thing though? I mean, just to, it's one thing to think something, right? But then actually saying it out loud, what's the difference? What did that feel like for you, at least verbalizing it?
I don't know if you remember, I used to tell you, the other thing, the workbooks are amazing. If anything, you want to take this class just for the workbooks. But we'd get instructions like write, just go and write. And I'd be like, I don't want to do that because I felt like, or I don't want to verbalize it because in my head, what I was telling myself, if I verbalize it or I write it down, it now becomes real.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just in my head anymore.
Right.
And that was really scary. I had to be super vulnerable to allow myself to do that.
So how does that feel now? Like knowing that you went from that place to where you are now?
It's cool. I mean, it still is hard for me, but I did a lot of writing this weekend and the thoughts come more freely.
Okay.
And sometimes they're ones that, and this is what you'll learn in 1.0 too. Sometimes you just let them go. And sometimes like you're able to filter out like the stuff that is like the noise that we tell ourselves, the bad things versus what you really need to know.
Mm.
Like I feel like I can decipher that now.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that, and that's definitely, was always my hope is being able to understand, again, the intuitive, right? The intuitive aspect of ourselves, versus what our brain, and we need our brains, right? But it's all understanding of like, okay, that's a little extra. I don't keep that extra.
Yeah, we don't need the negative self-talk, especially as women.
Right.
That we definitely don't need.
Right.
I don't hear that as much anymore.
Yeah. So when you think about this particular experience, and I know you say like, well, all women need this. So talk a little bit more about that. What do you think how do you think that it helps? Talk to, there's, many people, for example, that have reached out to me that, are like, yes, I want to take it. I can't afford it. Or I can't, I don't have the time. How much time? What would you say to them?
So, I mean, I've said all those things too. And the thing is that as women, as moms, even those single women, even people who aren't moms, we don't invest enough time in ourselves. And so I never want any other woman to get to a point that I was at where all of a sudden you're hitting a certain point in your life. And I don't want to call it a midlife crisis. That's not what it was. I just, I think we get
Yes, it was. No, I'm just kidding.
maybe it is. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. But I don't want people to get to that point where they're just all of a sudden they wake up one day and they're like, oh my God, like what am I doing? Like where am I going? Like who am I?
Yeah.
Because it's scary. And then you feel alone. Like you're kind of, I don't know. I was at that point where I was just like, okay, this is how my life is supposed to be. I didn't think I was worthy of
Mm.
being happy or any of those things. And so that's what I think we have to invest the time. And yes, I mean, good things cost money. Um, it's it's an investment in yourself and it's worth it. You're worth it. And I just got goosebumps. See, when I get goosebumps, that means it's true. Um, it's an investment that you need to make. You won't regret it. It's we have to take the time for ourselves, and especially now, where some of us are still cooped up in our houses. Some people are trying to homeschool their kids, and I understand. You're like, you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, but you have to take the time for yourself. Give yourself an hour, 2 hours a week. It's not that much.
So maybe Jen, I think I mean, I'm biased. So I think, I'm somebody obviously who's done a lot of professional development workshops and wellness
Mhm.
workshops for organizations. And, to me, I see this as professional development because you're going to take a professional development class and they're not going to offer you this, right?
Self-development, right?
And it is. And I think part of it, and I talk about my mission, out there is really to bridge the gap between leadership and wellness through self-empowerment and spirituality, because
I like that.
we're in this place and space that it's like those old structures, they don't work anymore, right? We know that. Here we are, COVID. And I think that right now, this is why this class, I think to me was so important to be of service, because I started to think about even Black Lives Matter. And, is that it's really when we're asking ourselves these questions about what do we think? What do we believe in? Well, it's about what, our ego. Wow, oh, wow, I didn't realize that I actually thought that, or I didn't
Mhm.
I don't want to say that. And that's my truth. Oh God. So it allows us to really sit within that, that inquiry, that self-inquiry, which is really, really so important, I think is what's clearly needed in the world, organizations and out there and all that kind of stuff. And we've talked about that, and things like
I
that.
think everybody needs a tribe too. And I feel like, so our group, for example, so yes, Connie said I was part of 1.0 and now we're in 3.0. And this group of us have moved.
Newly born.
Yeah, I mean, this group has moved together and it's in 2.0, we kind of got a little closer, and now in 3.0, like that's my tribe. Those are women I can go to, and those are women that like I know no matter what, I have support there. And I think that's important too. Like, yeah, we all have our friend groups and we have that, but I think it's important to have a group that maybe doesn't know you and it's like you're starting with a clean slate.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I know for me, it was like 1.0, it was like learning, okay, who am I? Like, I don't really know. And every week it was like a new layer was added until we got to the end. And it was like, whoa, I've got a really good framework here to build on. And that was invaluable. Like, you can't even put a price tag on that. That gives you just a new sense of purpose.
Totally. And it's funny because obviously Jen was part of the first class, so we didn't know what was going on. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it was great though.
Hey, fake it till you make it. Just kidding. But but I think that obviously for me, it's very cool to be able to see the growth be, behind the entire group that wants to continue. And then 2.0 being that deeper dive. And there are more workbooks in 2.0 too. But, and more exercises and more connection and things like that. And I think that, one of the biggest things is, as I mentioned, is, offering the tools to help you during times where you default, let's say, back to the old way of thinking or the logic. I don't want to use logical thinking, but so, Jen, what was one of your favorite things we did or tools that you got that you were like, I use that now?
Oh, that's a tough one. I use so many. Um, we did so many things. The meditations. I mean, I think for me, the meditations were huge. I really incorporated those into my daily life, and I still use those today.
Yeah.
Depending on what the day is. I will like it when I'm going to bed or whatever. I will pop something on just to listen to remind me. Um, yeah, I think those are so helpful.
Cool. Cool. And I think, um, as my dog barks, there are a lot of tools. There's lots of,
Yeah, so many tools. I mean, it really depends on the day.
I would agree, depending on the way that you wake up. If you
I
were,
mean, some days I need the tapping, some days I need the
yeah,
breathing. Um,
right.
yeah, it just, I think all of it together, it's just, there's so many resources now. Like, I feel like I have an arsenal,
Ooh, that's a good way to put it. An arsenal. Very good.
arsenal to pull from.
I'm going to pull it back. So, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure that those that are watching right now or those that are going to listen to it even afterwards, I would suggest even that you post your questions
Yeah, I mean, feel free. And I could talk about this forever.
or
So,
even offline,
yeah,
if it's not something to, I always say, don't ask me, ask those that have participated in the experience.
I mean, I have my binder. I have a binder.
Where is, so Lori, she was going to be on with us tonight too, but she surprised me in about, I don't know, week 2 or week 3 with this like beautiful binder of everything nicely organized. I said, oh, you'll have to share that with everybody else. It looks so nice.
Need a binder.
Definitely need a binder. Although I'm trying to be more sustainable, but there's something about that.
I have to hold it and feel it, and I like to write and
It's feel to heal.
yeah, I mean the calendar page, and it's so fun.
Absolutely. And each week, just so everybody knows too, I do pull a card for the energy of the week and encourage everybody to journal based on that particular card. And then I also within the group ask for I do weekly oracle readings. And
Those are our favorite.
I was going to say, those tend to be the favorites, right? Within the whole thing. And so you're constantly being given, guidance and, throughout the whole experience as well. Anything else that you want to share? Any parting words here?
Just take the step. Like, invest in yourself. You're worth it. Like, that's one of the things. Like, I was so bitter and angry like before I started this, and now I mean, definitely have my days. I mean, we all do, but I feel now. And I have a whole other story, but I mean, it's just, you need to do this for yourself. Invest in yourself, believe in yourself. You're worth it.
It sounds like that Maybelline commercial is like maybe she's born with it. Maybe she's Maybelline. I don't know why that was
Right?
coming to mind
No,
right
it
now,
really
but
does, but I know it sounds so cliche, but you really are worth it. It just came in my head. You're enough. Like, you have to learn to believe that and take the time for yourself because we don't do it enough.
well, and the cards that I pulled this week too, were really about having the courage to
Mhm.
um I don't want to say like step in the unknown, but it's like, stop the chase of whatever you're doing and be flexible
Uh,
for,
pull those cards for me.
I don't know, maybe if it resonates for you, it's you, baby. All right. But it's basically, stepping into, stepping away and out of this, not feeling enough, and the story that we tell ourselves that prevents us from moving forward because we're fearful perhaps of what's going to happen, when we actually step into that, and so it's like fear of success too. And so
Mhm.
how do we step more into our why? And that's also about speaking our truth. But it's interesting because there was also another aspect connected to like community and advocacy. And I said it's about advocating for others, but it's also about advocating for yourself. So where do you need courage, in your life to be able to advocate for yourself? And that is in this aspect of enoughness. I talk a lot about the fact that, you know, um, it's felt like this uphill battle. I say it's like climbing back up the mountain. Once you hit like rock, it's like you're climbing back up the mountain because, how does it feel to get to the top of the hill? And I remember, oh gosh, how many years ago? It was a couple of years ago. I went to California, and after I had my son, I all of a sudden had like these fear of heights. And I was like, I'm going to conquer this. I'm going to do this. And I had this like meditation that I was going to get to the top of the mountain. And so, and I remember I got to the top of the mountain by myself. I encouraged myself because I was like, I can do this. I don't have to stay stuck in my old stories. And that was part of me getting back to my center stage, right? So that was courage, right? So for you, we all have this courage, the lion. I think of the lion, which is the sign of Leo. But it's like, who's, like you said, the warrior. It's like the lioness within you, right? And hear her roar. And the enoughness, I am enough, is that noise for me. So I love that you said that, because I just think that is so important for all of us really to continue to keep in mind, is that, and again, this is all about feel to heal, because the mind tells us like, oh, you can't do that.
All the time.
Not today. Not right. And I do believe that there is a dance between, and it's your intuition. It's really understanding, right? It's understanding that I could sit here and tell Jen till she's blue in the face, right? Jen, you should do that right now. I don't know why you don't do that right now, right? I could sit here and say that to you, even as an intuitive. But if Jen doesn't feel that it's right for her, she's not going to do it, nor should she, right? Because it's about her choice, her decision, not mine.
Yeah, I think that's really important what you just said about intuition too, because also as women, we need to learn to listen to that voice. And I mean, I've definitely made decisions over the years where like I knew what I was supposed to do, but I did the opposite and it didn't work out so well. But I think we need to step into that power and trust ourselves that we know what we're talking about.
Totally agree. And I would say, I know we're talking about women right now, but even our gentlemen,
Yeah, for sure.
we all have, and I said this morning, I pulled in the video, I talked about like femme fierce, the cup today. It's still here, by the way.
That's awesome.
It's empty, but that we were talking about femme fierce, and I said, it's feminine energy. It doesn't matter who we are, whether we all have masculine and feminine energies. And in 2.0, we talk a bit about that, but we're not talking about 2.0 tonight. But it's really understanding that, and feeling is also receiving, right? So we also learn how to receive and understand what the balance is between giving and receiving. So those are fun. See, we have so much to talk about. This is the kind of stuff and feel the heal, right? So, all right, cool. Well, thank you, Jen. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
energy
Sign up
and
for
thank you. I didn't tell her to say that.
No, you didn't. I'm telling you.
So this is where I have fun with Be Live and I get to hide her. Be like, bye, Jen. There we go. Okay. So I want to just pause and see if there are any questions based on anything right now that we have shared. And I'm looking here. It doesn't look like there are any questions posted at all here. But the last thing that I wanted to leave you with is a little glimpse of an exercise that I want to encourage you all to practice. Okay. And the exercise is really about understanding your intuitive yes and in your intuitive no. Okay. So you're getting a little lucky here with this little instruction. But essentially, we understand that intuition is our own understanding without conscious reasoning. Okay, so it's our own understanding. It's that little extra nudge. We often don't know what it is until after the fact. Like, that was my intuition, right? Our gut, that kind of a thing. Our mind is the one that does all the thinking, right? Our intuition is the one that has that understanding and that inner knowing, right? So the intuitive feeling that we often get, right? So when we ask ourselves a question, the mind sometimes has a lot of personality when we ask questions. You'd be like, hey, should I make a right hand turn here, or should I make the left hand? Should I go the long way? Should I go the short way? Should I cut corners? Like, what should I do? Right. So the mind, have you ever been in that situation where you're like, I don't know which way to go, and then all of a sudden, right, you just kind of go, or you're like, I guess I was meant to go that way, right? So, for some of us, we might say, that's your intuition guiding you. It's your soul leading you which direction to go, right? We don't want to risk it either, but risk ourselves a bit doing that. But I think it's important for us to understand that our intuition is a feeling. It's a feeling. It's not a thinking. And so our feeling comes off when we ask and we're curious about it, comes off as quieter than our thinking. The thinking, if we ask it a question of like, should I call that person or should I email them? The mind will be like, no, they have not called you. Call them, right? Where the intuition would have a softer voice and it might say, meditate on that. See how you feel tomorrow. Or, open your heart, right? There's a little voice that we get when we do this. So this is one of the key pieces that we work through during the course. Okay. And it's a practice and it's not something that happens overnight. Hey, you know what? When I was a kid, I used to see a lot of things. I have many of the clairs, the clairvoyance, the clairsentience. We could keep going, right? And my intuition as a kid, I essentially negated it because I sat in fear and anxiety for so long until I was able to say, you know what? I have these gifts. And once I started to embrace them and started to embrace even some of those darker aspects and those darker thoughts that I had, the light showed up for me. And so that's something I think that is really, really key when it comes to our intuition. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a process and it's a muscle that needs to be continued to, it's more of like you have to, it opens up the more that you can acknowledge it. And the more that you listen to it and you can understand it, then you have this ability to be able to do that. So in order for us to understand our intuitive yes or no, right, we have to ask open-ended questions. So things like, am I beautiful? are not questions we should ask our intuition, but a question like, which line at the grocery store is the fastest? And then pausing and seeing what comes up for you, what feelings show up for you are really, really key. And allowing and testing essentially, and getting to know your intuition. Right. So using those kinds, or my favorite one is, what time should I go to bed? I often tell everyone to look at the clock and go hour by hour and so if right now it's 8:24, right? So I would probably suggest to start at 9 o'clock. And I would look at the time and I would stop and say, okay, what does 9 o'clock feel like in my body? And notice it. And then ask yourself, is this a yes? Right? The other thing that we want to connect with in general when we're asking ourselves like the intuitive yes or no is actually just to sit in silence and ask and say, show me intuitive yes. And then sit with yourself and see what comes up for you. So some people tell me like ear ringing or and actually Jen, I think we can still hear you. What's your intuitive yes? Yes, in general. Can we hear you? I don't know if we can hear you. Maybe we can't. Are you there? Yeah. So in general, how do you know something is yes for you from an intuitive? And what does that feel like? So the goosebumps. Perfect. Awesome. So I also get goosebumps as well. Chills, like little, right? So there you go. So perfect, right? So Jen knows that, she asks a question or, that then it's a yes or it's something to pay attention to based on that physical feeling or sensation that she has in her body, right? So for some people, they smile. For some people, they have this like, openness like within them feeling like I actually get a lot. So when I pull cards, my intuitive yes actually is behind my spine. And I feel this like zoop energy that kind of comes through and things go out. Oh no, they couldn't hear you. Oops. So here, let me bring you back on and then they can hear what your intuitive yes is. 3, 2, 1. Thank you for sharing that. All right, she's
That's so funny. So
tell
yeah,
us what your intuitive yes is again.
my intuitive yes, I get goosebumps. I mentioned it before. Like when I know something to be true, even if I'm just talking, sometimes I'll get like these goosebumps on my arms, and it's just a feeling. I just know.
Yeah. So it's a sensation, right? And as I was saying before, for some of us, we have, ear ringing. Like a lot of times I'm in class with other classes, and I'll get some of the the participants will be like, my ears are ringing. What does that mean, Connie? What does that mean? And I'll say, they often use the statement of like, it's in between your ears, and so the ear ringing, could be this notion of like, pay attention, right? Hear something. You've got to hear something, or you're listening to something, right? You're getting a connection. It's very different. Some people get like a flutter in their belly, or I've had people in their hip, right? It doesn't matter. It's whatever's true for you. So, Jen, what about if something's no for you? What shows up in your body?
I think it's just, again, it's just, it's like that doubt. Like
And
if
what
you
does that
have
feel like?
doubt, and again, this comes with practice. Because there were many times I didn't listen to that, but now I know. I just
You all hear that?
don't even know how to
You
explain it.
put
Like
in
I
listen to it.
know, like that's a no.
Yeah, right.
Um, but a lot of physical sensations, like you mentioned, the ringing in the ears. I get that a lot. Um,
Uh-huh.
the goosebumps, like it's just learning. I think, and this is what Feel to Heal teaches you, right? It's learning to understand yourself and how you process and work.
Yeah, how you work, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad you brought that up. I forget about that a lot of times, is that it's that simple. It's really,
Well,
it's,
how everything's connected. Like, and
yeah,
every week you're building on that.
in the physical, emotional, and spiritual realms.
You're
Absolutely.
literally drawing a roadmap for yourself.
I like that.
So it's really cool when it kind of all comes together. It's
Yeah.
helpful.
Absolutely. So I think in general for everybody, really asking the question of, and most of the times, you'd be doing this in meditation, but I know sometimes people are like, I don't know how to meditate or I can't sit still. And there's other thoughts on that. But, I think that if you can just pause for a minute or two and just ask and inquire within and say, soul, show me intuitive yes. And I want you to use the word intuitive yes, because I think that that's important. And then I want you to pause and close your eyes. And then I want you to notice. And I want you to kind of repeat it. Show me intuitive yes. Show me intuitive yes. And then I want you to see what comes up in your body, right? And so the goal behind this is then to practice it. And so again, using things like wherever you go, it's like I'm in the grocery store. Should I, go to this line or go to this line? So then go to yes, and then connect that feeling with wherever you're focusing on, right? So then the same thing goes for show me intuitive no, right? And so it's also asking yourself, like, show me intuitive no. And sometimes I often tell people, like, think of something that you're absolutely like, it's a no, or has been a no for you in the past. And what did that feel like? Right? So oftentimes, again, we don't notice intuition until after the fact. So it's really important for us to go back and kind of notice, like, where was my intuition correct? And what did I feel in that moment? Right? So here's the thing. We don't always remember everything, but we feel like we remember feelings, right? It's like, when they say you go to a wedding, you never remember the flowers, but you remember if you had a good time. It's the same kind of a thing. So really, focusing on that, I think, is really, really essential. And again, like I mentioned, asking yourself the question of, like, very, very simple questions. Like, here's another one. Should I take this job offer?
That's a big one.
Should I take this job offer? Should I make more time in my relationship? Should I, whatever. We don't always want to create yes or no opportunities, to be honest, with intuition. Like what I always say, like, but in learning it, though, it's important to do it in that way. But again, we're not asking questions like, am I beautiful? Those are not questions we're asking. We're asking questions where then we can engage, right? We can engage in that understanding as we connect with our feelings within ourselves. So that is an exercise, and I encourage everybody in the class to practice that for an entire week and to kind of notice where you are. We actually do that during the first week. That's one of the exercises that we do. And then we also do things in the moment and talk about what those feelings are so that we can start to speak them. And therefore, as we speak them, they become integrated more into our conscious brain versus perhaps hidden in the unconscious world. So very, very good. Let's see. Are there any questions before we wrap up tonight? I could keep talking. So
this is something we could talk about for hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you are listening to this and it's after the live experience here, feel free to still post your questions. Happy to chime in. Also, how this resonates with you. We'd love, love, love to hear from you. And as I mentioned, that we are we're jumping into early bird specials right now up until December 1st. It's crazy that literally Sunday we are November 1st. So, so if anybody's interested and wants to talk more about how this experience is for you, I'm happy to speak with you. And we could talk forever. So, all right, looks like no questions. Wow, answered everything. Now look at that. Thank you so much for being my guest of honor.
It was so fun.
And now that I know how to work this thing.
It's awesome.
And I hope everybody has a great evening tonight, and we'll talk to you all soon. All right, bye.